How is this word deep sleep used? Jehovah God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. And we see the word caused. It's not in the original Hebrew except in the word fall. It has in mind made to fall. And if God made a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, he caused it. So that's accurate. It is God's doing. And the word cause shows us that this was God's purpose. This was God's doing. He's the one behind everything. And that's true. Jehovah God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. Now, the word deep sleep is 8639 in Hebrew of Strong's Concordance, and it's found a few places. Now, to begin with, I want to go to the New Testament, which isn't the same word, but it's the same two English words. In Acts chapter 20, verses 8 and 9, we have a young man that is listening to the Apostle Paul preach very late into the night until midnight. And it was on the Sabbath day. It was on Sunday Sabbath. And the fact that Paul preached to midnight does show us that Sunday up until midnight is the Sabbath. It's a 24-hour period in which we should, as much as possible, take spiritual benefit from. Well, he got tired, this young man, and it says in verse 8 of Acts 20, there were many lights in the upper chamber where they were gathered together, and there sat in a window a certain young man named Eutychus, being fallen into a deep sleep. And as Paul was long preaching, he sunk down with sleep and fell down from the third loft and was taken up dead. And Paul went down and fell on him and embracing him said, trouble not yourselves, for his life is in him. And then he came up again. He began to live again. And so God had given Paul that miraculous power to do that. This man was dead, and God joins together the fact that he fell into a deep sleep and death. His deep sleep turned into death, even though he came back to life or was resurrected from the physical death. And so that's helpful for us with the idea of a deep sleep and death. And that is what God has in view. But we want to look a little bit further at deep sleep in the Old Testament. In Isaiah 29, verse 10, it says, for Jehovah hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered, and the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. And the book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned. Back in verse 10, Jehovah poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep and has closed your eyes. The prophets, rulers, and seers, and the vision of all would be a reference to the Bible that is like a sealed book to them. And here God is telling us about spiritual death. Spiritual death is that man's eyes are closed to the words of the book, the Bible. And when Adam and Eve eat of the forbidden fruit, they will experience spiritual death in their soul existence. They will die spiritually. They will lose life spiritually. And basically, the Bible becomes closed to them. The Word of God, they're blind to it, following spiritual death. Also, when God brings a judgment on the church, and he strikes them with blindness. And that's why Isaiah and the New Testament picks up the language of, you have eyes but see not, and ears but hear not. It's describing spiritual death concerning those that have entered into the congregations, into the churches of the world. When God judges the church and his spirit comes out of the midst at the time of the end, at the beginning of the Great Tribulation, when judgment begins at the house of God, it's like a deep sleep has fallen over the congregations, and their eyes are closed, that they now cannot any longer understand the words of the book, or there cannot be hearing of the word of God, or seeing, we could add to that, because that would be salvation. And so to have your eyes closed in a deep sleep is a form of spiritual death that all unsaved men have experienced, and those within the churches experience with God's judgment, and also at the time of the final judgment of man, the deep sleep would be complete, total annihilation. You don't know anything about anything anymore because your eyes are closed forever. Spiritual death is that man's eyes are closed to the words of the book, the Bible.